Everything you see behind me are strange dice, unique TTRPG accessories, or other adjacent nerdy things, ranging from bouncy dice trays, fantasy-themed snacks, and some dice that only certain people can even use. So let's take a look at each one and make sure you stick around to the end for a couple of bonus items. As always, I will link to each product in the description of the video. Some of those links might be referral or affiliate links and some will not, but I'll make sure you know which ones are which. But let's start off with some dice that smell like chaos. This is Baron's Smelly Bones, a series of dice made by Studio Woe. And while I've shown off some of these in previous videos, this new one might be my favorite. I found this at Gen Con earlier this year, and what this is a set of D6s that smell like fireball char. I hope the connection is somewhat obvious for you, but you use D6s with Fireball in Dungeons & Dragons. These are D6s, and they smell like Fireball. Not the whiskey, that is, but they smell like fire. Like smoke and ash and a bit of wood. It's kind of insane. It's actually really awesome. And in case you're curious, I've had this other set by them, which smells like cemetery soil, for over a year now, and it still smells like cemetery soil, like wet dirt. Their website lists a bunch of others as well, like Vampire Wine, Nature's Embrace, and Ancient Armory, which I find really intriguing, so I'm gonna have to try that out too. But now it's time to morph into another set of dice. Dungeon Morph, that is. So this is a set of generator dice that might seem obvious in their function. You roll them to generate your own village map. However, they have one design feature that's worthy of note. No matter how you lay them out, they seamlessly flow together. So you could just roll them on the table, bunch them all together, and now you have a little village map. This makes these great for on-the-fly village generation or even inspiration for campaign or session prep. Dungeon Morph has other generator sets as well, like dungeons, crypts, ruined cities, sewers, and so on. But this video isn't just about dice, so let's jump up the chaos just a little bit. Now this one simultaneously requires some explanation and also no explanation at all, because this is the Reckless Rollers Trampoline Dice Case by Band of Idiots, and that's exactly what this is. The case comes in two pieces. One is a tray, and the other is a trampoline. So you can bounce your dice into the case, or into another vessel. You could even use it as a real-life skill check, or however else you might want to use this as an instrument of chaos. It all clicks together nicely and can even store dice on the inside for storage or for travel. But now, in the intro of the video, I said that this list would include some items that classify as adjacent nerdy products, and this next one might exemplify that the best. There's really no other way to describe these. They're fantasy-themed meat sticks. The company is called Mythical Meats, which is a memorable name, and they have several different styles of their meat snacks. They have their official Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers rations, which has things like Deceptive Delight and Nature Nibble, which I would say is for druids or maybe rangers. But they also have their Humanoid Pack, which has things like leprechauns and Bigfoot, plus their original Mythical Meats Pack, which is all based on fantastic creatures, like dragons and unicorns and so on. These are actually really tasty. I've already eaten a lot of them, but my favorite thing about them might be the fact that they use ingredients that really pairs up with whatever the snack is supposed to represent. Like how the Griffin actually has ostrich meat in it, which is kind of crazy. I didn't know you could do that, but apparently so. So dietary restrictions allowing, these can be a really nice snack to have at the table or a great gift for whatever fantasy-loving, meat-eating nerd you happen to know. They also make hot sauces, which my wife and I tried out. Sometimes though, you don't just want a fantasy-themed snack. You want a fantasy-themed meal. Now this one's pretty straightforward and pretty well known, but this is the Hero's Feast. It's the official Dungeons & Dragons cookbook. But there are a few interesting things that I like about this book specifically. First, the book is broken down into sections like human, elven, dwarven, halfling, and uncommon cuisines, as well as elixirs and ales, which makes this a great choice if you want to cook a thematic meal for your table, or simply if you have someone who you know will enjoy making these kinds of things. You have things like iron rations, tavern steak, elven bread, and a drink called Delayed Blast Fireball. Sounds dangerous. But speaking of, I get it. Not everyone's hungry, some of us are just thirsty. Which brings us to the DungeonMeister Deck of Many Drinks. This is a deck of many drinks, but there's a catch, because these don't just affect the player that's drinking them, they also affect the character. You see, each card in the deck is a thematic cocktail, where the card itself actually has an item description for in-game purposes, as well as some nice artwork. But then each of those cards corresponds to a real-world cocktail recipe that comes in the included booklet. This is just really fun because I do love anything that bridges the gap between the player and their character, and I think this might do that really, really well. Now, if you're watching this right now, that means one of two things. Either you play tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, or you want to. And in either case, you should genuinely check out today's sponsor, Start Playing. Start Playing makes it extremely easy to find a game, a group, and a game master to start playing as soon as today. But let me emphasize easy, because to find a game, you simply go to startplaying.com, choose the game you want to play, days that you're free, and additional filters if you want, like games for beginners or systems other than Dungeons & Dragons. From there, you can leisurely browse a ton of games run by professional GMs, who have been reviewed by verified players so you know what you're getting into. Start Playing has thousands of games, has been trusted by over 80,000 players, and makes it extremely easy to find the right group for you. You can explore the site and available games without even signing in, so go check it out. And if you use the link in the description of the video, you can get $10 off your first game and start playing today. But now let's get off of food and drink and go to jail. Dice jails are a dime a dozen, and most of them are great by their own right. But this one I love for one reason, which is that it's fully metal and actually high security, if the dice had arms and legs. It's fully metal and damn near indestructible. Does your dice jail need to be indestructible? No. Is it a lot cooler when it is? Yes, and it even slams shut for dramatic effect. But now, speaking of things that are unnecessary but awesome, we have the Shadow Dice. Now, these actually have two really interesting features, but let's take a look at the visuals first. It's clean but elegant with nice color contrast, which I love. Now, obviously, this is another kind of spinner dice, but they've added magnets to ensure that these come to a stop quickly and never on the line, which I think is a really nice quality of life feature. But here's the second fascinating detail about these dice that you've already seen. They actually double as real-life candlesticks. And to be honest, I think they look incredible as exactly that. I've had mine just sitting on a shelf, and they're honestly kind of a vibe. Now, this is actually the first of a couple products in this video that are actively on their Kickstarter when I posted this video. So if you see this close to posting, this might still be in the Kickstarter, and if not, I'll try my best to replace it with a retail link later on if I can. But speaking of spinning dice that don't spin forever, these are the Roulette Dice 3.0. And while you may have seen the Roulette Dice on my channel before, this is by far my favorite iteration of the Roulette Dice design. First of all, it comes in 4 versions. You have this steampunk design, this shield, this druidic acorn, and this arcane spellbook. But each one works the same. You simply press this button, it causes wheels inside to spin, and when you stop, they come to a stop too. These look great, have an awesome clean design, and are really satisfying to use, so I'm a big fan. But now another product that's actively in their Kickstarter at the time of recording, we have MagVault. Now, MagVault at its core is an elegant but kind of sneaky dice storage. I say elegant because the whole thing has some really lovely design, is really soft but also very sturdy, with plenty of space on the inside for storage of dice and minis, but also pencils. The sneaky feature, though, has to do with its lid, which can easily snap to form a dice tray, like so, which makes the whole thing a great addition to any setup, either for travel or for storage. But now let's take a look at something stranger, like smart dice. Now, in a previous video, I showed off the Pixels Smart D20, but now I've acquired a full set of the Pixels dice. These come in this charging case, and the dice themselves come in all the standard shapes, except for the D4, which is in a shape that I think is better than the standard pyramid, but you can configure each die to have its own animation based on what you roll in the Pixels app. You can also have the app play sounds when certain numbers are rolled, and even configure these to send web requests based on their rolls, which is something that I would love to play around with more in the future, so let me know in the comments if you want to see that. And when I was at Gen Con earlier this year, I actually got to meet the Pixels team, and they were awesome. And they seem to be a pretty awesome company with a lot of cool ideas, and I'm excited to see where they go. But now for something spookier. This is the Sanguine Call D20 by Die Hard Dice. And while it is just a single metal D20, it's designed with a really clever concept in mind. When you look up close, you'll find an engraved ring around the sides of the die that, when viewed together, form a dark vampiric scene with graveyards, bats, castle spires, and more. Not to mention the crimson accents and clean finish. This is a great choice for the fall season, but also an obvious one for any kind of vampire-centric campaign that you might find yourself a part of. Next we have a D20 Ring. This is a D20 Ring by Astranova. And while I've seen D20 rings before, they're usually really cheap and poorly made, but this one's heavy, spins quickly, and is actually really satisfying to use. With that being said, I'm not sure if this exact model is going to be available. I know Astranova has had another Kickstarter for a magnetic version of this one, so we'll see what happens, and I'll do my best to still find a link to use for this in the description. But speaking of Astranova projects, they're also responsible for one that is a bit more intense. This is the Astranova Bullet Nest dice set, and this is probably the final boss of Bullet Dice. It's heavy with a solid base and has a satisfying opening mechanism that is spring-loaded, like that. The chamber spins freely when it's open and clicks when it's closed. But the thing I find weird about this set is that they only have 6 dice, which makes sense considering what it's meant to represent, but the one die that they excluded was a D4, even though they still included both the D10 and D percentile. In my mind, it would make sense to keep the D4 and drop the D percentile, but let me know what you think. But then we have a set of dice that only some people are even able to use. And this also might be the dice set that best represents Die Hard Dice as a company, because this is a set of Braille RPG dice, and is in fact one of the most affordable sets of Braille dice on the market. And they didn't just slap Braille on there and call it a day, because this was actually made in association with the DOTS or DOTS project, which is aimed at bringing accessibility into the TTRPG space. So even if you're someone who might not be able to use this yourself, if you do know someone who could, make sure you send these their way. But now for 2 honorable mentions. These are items that are interesting and unique in their own way, but might not justify an entire section of the video. First is this. It's a D20 inside a D20, which means that you're always rolling with advantage or disadvantage if you need to. You can always ignore one of the dice whenever you don't need it, and then pay attention to it when you do. Super fun. My friends brought this back from Japan as a gift to me, which is really nice of them. Thank you, Joe and Leah. And then I also have these. These are Dungeons & Dragons Mad Libs, as well as Critical Role Mad Libs. They're just regular Mad Libs themed after each one respectively, but they did give me the idea that it would be a lot of fun to have a Mad Lib style generator for towns, items, NPCs, and things like that. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in seeing that made. And of course, that's all we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. Leave a comment telling me what you liked or what you didn't like. And until I see you next time, please have an excellent, excellent day.